I think I'm saying that we struggle all our lives to answer it. That it's the struggle that is important. That's what helps us to define our place in the universe.
This is Beverly, Dr. Beverly, Dr. Beverly Crusher. Honest.
Forceful.
Trusting.
Brilliant.
Strong.
And adventurous.
And this is Crusher Convo.
Hey guys, and welcome to Crusher Convo, where we are crushing the conversation one episode at a time. And I am so excited as we will be discussing season 3 of Star Trek Picard 1 year later, or 1.5 years later. And in the guest seat today, I am welcoming back one of our favorite cosplayers and Bevhead. We have Erin. Hello, Erin. How are you?
Hello, Jesse. Thanks for having me as a guest. I'm really excited to be here.
I always love seeing your photos. Now, tell our audience, though, what your favorite cosplay is.
Well, I would have to say my very favorite one is probably the Big Goodbye outfit from season 1 of TNG. I've had a chance to wear it a couple times for Gates, and it's been so wonderful just to, see not only her reaction, but, other people who are in attendance of the event. And it's just to, have compliments for her. There's, nothing better than.
There's nothing better.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, you just saw Gates recently, right? With your Big Goodbye.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Motor City Comic-Con.
Nice. Yeah. I saw your photo. That purse, literally, it's something that you could pull out of a TNG episode. How did you find that purse?
I actually had to make it because I looked around everywhere. They had nothing like it. So it was sort of a pandemic project, actually. I was just, I've got some time to, do things. So I will actually watch The Big Goodbye a lot of times and pay very close attention, and just, I had to make the template for the, oval shape and the handle cutouts. I had a very, very nice friend with a wood shop who cut out the shapes for me. And then I just had to just get the, synthetic leather to cover it and actually build the pocket for the purse. So it's actually a functional purse.
Oh, now does it have gum?
Thankfully, no one has tried to give me any. Usually when I try to pack it, I'll put the sunglasses in there and the gloves. But I have not put any gum in there yet.
Any gum yet? Okay. Just, maybe a mint, next time. The recent episode I did with Abby from First Flight Podcast, we were talking about Beverly's outfits, and the Big Goodbye was one of my choices. And so we made the little bit of a joke between the mint and the gum kind of thing. I know she was offered the gum, but I'm sure she probably had some and just didn't know what it was, right? So,
oh man, this stuff they use is horrible.
Right? I know. I'm curious. I was like, it must have just been peppermint at that time, right? I'm sure they didn't have 10 million flavors like we have now.
Right. And some of those flavors, even besides peppermint, they had some that weren't so great, like black licorice.
Ooh, not going there. Nope. That's giving me college PTSD with the Jägermeister.
just
thinking about that.
Just makes my stomach hurt.
Exactly. Well, as I was just saying, we are going to be discussing season 3 of Picard, which was our return of Beverly Crusher. And so when you first saw this scene, because that was literally how the season opened, it was over 5 minutes of Beverly Crusher. And of course, after this, she's rushing and trying to get into warp and trying to stop the bad guys. She gets shot. There's this whole action sequence. What was your reaction when you first saw that?
Oh, it was absolutely incredible, because after so much anticipation of, Beverly's going to be in this season, how long are they going to wait before she actually gets introduced? And it's right at the beginning, and that opening sequence, and you see, the various artifacts like Beverly's pearls and everything, and just seeing that, right away, you're just, blown away, and you just like, this is going to be a great season.
I was so excited because, as everyone knows, I'm new to the fandom. I just started watching the show, and I got spoiled because I just saw TNG, and then I'm getting brand new material with Picard. So seeing her all of a sudden, like you said, you see the little ship, which R.I.P. Elios. And then you see all her artifacts with the pearls and the flowers. And so you're like, okay, that's the Big Goodbye. That's cause and effect. You see her masks, which, you can see in her quarters, like in Sub Rosa, and you're seeing all this stuff. Jack Crusher's bag, his suitcase. And you're like, okay, this is great. And then she just pops up and you're like, yes, bring it on. Let's do this. I am a weirdo when it comes to certain characters that I like. I like my favorite characters getting injured. And here's why. And it's because I know this sounds so weird, but it's because the acting, when someone is injured, especially in a high tense situation, the acting is like up a couple of notches. And so you're seeing amazing material. This is why I really love Arsenal of Freedom. As much as, love you, Jay, as much as we make a joke about Picard's first aid skills, Gates did beautifully being injured, right?
Yes.
Yes. And so that's the kind of stuff that I long for, of like, are they going to make it? What's going to happen? Is this going to, be a permanent problem? One of my favorite shows growing up was Xena. And, there was always situations where she was injured and she fought through. And those were high tense situations where you were just watching, you were glued to the TV, right?
Right.
So as you're seeing Beverly not only get injured, but she's freaking fighting with a phaser and she's killing the bad guys and she's just being a badass. And we're like, this is the Beverly we all know and love. Now, what did you think about the music choice? Because I really want to talk about the beginning of this song, which of course was I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire by the Ink Spots. So what did you think of that when you first started hearing it?
It was a little interesting. The introduction almost made me think about Happy Trails. But it was, it seemed a little unusual, although it's like, is that something that's just become public domain? Or, I mean, obviously we were going for something, romantic and something like that. And, we were thinking, well, Picard loves archaeology, older things. Maybe his taste in music kind of drifts towards the older time periods as well.
Well, I mean, very Dixon Hill, right? He was fascinated with those 1940s detective novels, and that song was in the 50s. And so it made sense. And it was interesting when I heard that, because I clocked Picard. That was kind of my idea of it. Now, some of the lyrics of that song was, in my heart, I have one desire, and that one is you. No other will do. I've lost all ambition for worldly acclaim. I just want to be the one you love. And with your admission that you feel the same, I'll have reached the goal I'm dreaming of. And I'm all like, that's a beautiful little love song for Picard to give. And of course, as we're watching the episode, we do hear Picard playing an old song in his library at the chateau. It's a different song, but it has the same similar taste. So you're kind of like, oh, I wonder if he gave Beverly that first song, I
think that second song that you were just referring to comes back again in the later episode. I was thinking it was one Jack was recalling that memory of going to the gardens with his mom.
It's funny you mentioned that.
The Crimson Arboretum on Reverton 4. My mother took me there as a boy. She adored this song.
Don't get lost in it, Jack. Stay with me.
She played it all the time. Less of a song but a memory, coded in the melody. Passed down from my father to my mother to me.
Perfect timing. That was a great segue. And we actually heard the song 3 times because it was in Picard's library. We hear it at the end of the episode when they go on the ship and he goes, it was a mixtape of songs that I gave her instead of wine and roses. And then all of a sudden you hear this song playing in Jack's memory. And he was like, my mother adored this song. This song, however, is a little bit more sadder.
I can't stop crying,
Yeah, he's like, over you, can't think of smiling, now I'm sad and blue. Like there's a bunch of these different lyrics and you're like, I wonder if he played it when they broke up in one of those 5 times that we'll talk about in a little bit. I think part of the lyric says, I can't stop praying you'll come back home. So I found that interesting that he was still playing that song even 20 plus years later.
Mm-hmm.
because that song reminded him of Beverly, and that's what he was playing at the chateau.
Right.
So, and of course, Jack said it was more of a memory passed from my father to my mother to me, and I just thought that was great that they added these songs to represent Picard and Beverly's love story that we never saw.
And it's nice to see that the mixtape sort of had a revival in later years.
Yes, I know. It's still going strong, right? I mean, I think we all kind of freaked out. We're like, he made her a mixtape, guys. Like, oh my gosh. There is a third song that not many people know about, and that was actually playing in No Win Scenario and 10 Forward. So, of course, this wasn't really part of Picard's mixtape for Beverly, but I thought it was kind of interesting that it was playing while Picard's trying to eat his dinner in front of all those cadets. And it's called I Can't Break Away from That Girl by Slam Allen. And there's just a couple lyrics that I was able to get. It says, when I see that girl, I can't control myself. I should have left my feelings on the shelf. Something about her I want more and more. I get weak in my knees. I want to drop to the floor. And I remember when it finally hit me what the song was, I remember tweeting out, and I was like, well played, Terry, well played. And he liked the tweet because I was like, I see what you did there. Because, of course, that scene ended up being a whole thing about Jack and why he didn't want to see his father, because he did try to see his father and he was disappointed. So, but yeah, was there anything, though, that you feel like was missing? I mean, we got these snippets where it was like love story and their songs and stuff, but was there something about their story that you wish you saw?
Well, part of it, there was just a little bit at the end when, of course, they're returning from the Borg cube once, it explodes and everyone's back safe. And of course, definitely totally expected that the first hug from Beverly would be for Jack. I mean, absolutely no doubt there. But you'd think that it just seemed missing that there wasn't at least a hug or some sort of show of affection for Jean-Luc, because the last time they saw each other, they thought it perhaps might be the last time that they saw each other.
True.
And and he promised he'll bring him back, and it's just everyone's coming back, you've saved the universe, big euphoria. It's like not even just a little hug to say I'm glad you're still alive, you brought our son back. It just seemed like something that was missing. And maybe it was not there because it would have messed up the rhythm of the scene or something like that, but it just felt wasn't quite complete. You know what I mean?
A disconnect.
Right.
And we did see there was a behind the scene footage where we did see Picard holding Beverly's hand, but it wasn't in the shot. Right. So it was like they must have been holding hands or touched in some case, but it was cut, weirdly. That was kind of one of the things that I was a little slightly disappointed, was how it was edited. Because you can kind of see different shots that they kind of pasted together. Yeah. And so I think that's why there was kind of this, this disconnect as, with these scenes. Cause I was like, oh, I feel like this should have happened, and it didn't. And like, oh, well, it did, but they cut it out.
Yeah. So, and you could see like after, Jack and Beverly released their hug, and then, it was kind of like a three-way hug with, Jack in the middle, sort of symbolism. I could see, the symbolism of, Jack bringing the two of them together. And that was, great. But it did still feel like that, there wasn't a, real release as far as, between, Jean-Luc and Beverly, as far as
a reunion.
Right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, she just tried to kill them. Yeah. And
it's like, thankfully you're still alive. You're here.
You're still alive. A little bit more of an emotional reunion than what we got, but but we did have some good moments, which actually that's what we're going to go into next. We got our favorite moments that we decided to pick out. So I'm going to go ahead and play mine, which mine was the return of Erin. And I know a lot of people were kind of like, oh, I really wish they didn't bring her back. I kind of wish this had happened. I honestly hated, capital H, how they ended her story on TNG. I thought it was the stupidest thing about her leaving the Enterprise for the Maquis. It just seems so abrupt. I know she always felt like an outcast, and that was always her struggle, but she did have a close relationship with Picard. There was that father-daughter relationship there. Mm-hmm. And so for her to just be like, peace out, I thought it was dumb. When I saw it for the first time, I was like, that's it? That's how they ended the character. After all of this, they just had her leave. And so I understand why Terry fought so hard to get Michelle back to play this role. It was a redemption for her character, because I do not believe that her character ended correctly in TNG, and clearly Terry didn't either. And this was a fantastic moment. Seeing her coming down the corridor, I woke up at 1 a.m. to watch these episodes, and seeing her come down, I was like, there was a gasp. I was so excited. The only thing that I just didn't like was that there wasn't really a big reunion with the other characters. I get it. There was a timing issue. There's only 10 episodes. They're really trying to showcase the relationship she had with Picard. But like, she had a relationship with Riker. They had, 2 seconds. Beverly and her, they had somewhat of a nice friendship growing at the end. Didn't even see each other. It was kind of, and I know Geordi wasn't there yet. So of course, they're almost dying when they were phased out was interesting. But I just, I was just so happy that they brought her back. What was your reaction when you saw Rode just pop up on screen?
Yeah, it was really nice to see her come back. Like, when you were talking about her abrupt departure, I know I had heard at some point in time that they were possibly thinking of having her be involved in DS9, and I wonder if they were suddenly, moving, getting rid of her character because she said she didn't want to do that. That part, it's anyone's guess,
right?
But yeah, there's sometimes when characters just disappear, and it's like, they go away forever. You never know what happened to them. Sometimes, like in this case, something happens to him and you're like, I wish that never happened to them, because couldn't you just have her, kind of ride off into the sunset with the Maquis, and you never hear what happens to her?
Yeah. And you're right. It was supposed to be Rolaren on DS9, but she didn't want to do it. And so that's why we got Kira Nerys. But as I was just talking on Twitter, where people were, I guess it was the anniversary of Tears of the Prophets, where Jadzia dies. And everyone's all like, man, I wish they didn't kill off her character. And there's the pros and cons of why they did it. Fine. But yeah, Jadzia was an awesome character, and it sucked that they just killed her off. They could have done it, in my opinion, they could have done it a little differently. Right. And I feel like they could have also done Michelle's exit a little bit better. And again, we don't know what happened behind the scenes. Like you said, this should have just been their lay of like, well, she wants out, so fine, just have her do this, But it still just hurts as a fan. You're watching this character that you really like, and they don't treat them correctly. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it just seems very undignified.
Just a little bit, right? Now let's head up into your favorite moment. A lot's happened in 20 years. I agree. This scene was awesome. But why did you pick this moment?
Well, I have been a fan of Beverly's for a very, very long time, since I was 11 years old, actually. And, back in those days, you'd come across other fans of Star Trek, and they're like, oh, who's your favorite character? And I'd be like, Dr. Crusher. And either there'd be a couple different reactions. One would be like, oh. Or someone else would be like, really? Well, she doesn't really do anything. It's like, well, yes, she does if you actually pay attention. And
correct.
It's like, she does so much if you really, really look. And this was actually sort of a, see, I mean, she's always, at various moments demonstrated skill with weaponry, and this is the time when it's just right in front of your face that, hey, she's got some mad skills, people.
And it's true. A lot's happened in 20 years. She had to be doing a bunch of stuff, which I would love to see someone write a book. David Mack, Dayton Ward, I don't care. Like, someone write a book on Beverly's 20 years, because I would love to know what she's gone through.
Or even like they have those biographies that they wrote of all the captains. Let's have one, because the Beverly early years would be so great too to have.
That is true. I mean, yeah, we don't know much about her early years either, as I had talked about this with Josh when we were doing my little Star Wars crossover. I had mentioned that a lot of Beverly's origins were very Star Wars. You know, her being born on the moon and losing her parents and, you know, surviving planetary disasters and just all this stuff. And it made her into the person that she was, you know, today. But
even recording the message for Jean-Luc was almost like the "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope."
Exactly. Oh, absolutely. Oh man, I wish I had mentioned that. Gosh darn it. I'm gonna redo the episode. No, but it's true. Like, she was reaching out and she's all like, "You're literally the only one I could trust." That's what she told him in sickbay. And yeah, it was just very interesting that we only know so very little about Beverly's background. And now we know very little about why she was gone or where she had been for the last 20 years. But in your scene that you picked was like, she's gone through a lot, and she was flipping phasers and torpedoes and doing all this crazy stuff.
Well, yeah, and even like in that opening scene that we were just discussing a short time ago, when you know, the camera goes to her and you see her face, you know, it's one thing where you can say, yes, this is, you know, I've been waiting for this for so long, you know, this is the character I love. And then you look at her face and it's like, oh no, she's really gone through some shit, and
she's gone some
so you're, you know, very happy but sad at the same time.
Yeah, which that brings me up into the episode of Dominion, where, and there was that deleted scene where she's like, I've seen the violence that they did to try and get Jack. I've seen so much. She's like, I think I'm losing my compass, which was huge for Beverly to say, right? Like, she always had this moral compass. She always was a straight and narrow. And the fact that she had gone through so much just to try to protect Jack, even just in the last few months, she was starting to be like, I'm going to kill this woman. Like, I'm going to set up a phaser and we're going to just kill her. And I'm going to be fine with it. She's did a Benjamin Sisko of like, I could live with it.
Right. Because
with her glass of
usually when she's like facing adversity and everything, you know, she's usually just, you know, keeping her cool. She's staying focused on, this is what we need to do. And there's definitely, you know, she's saying like, you know, I don't know if I can keep this together this time. This is, you know, I'm having a hard time with this.
And Picard made a good point where he's all like, have we changed so much that we are willing to sacrifice everything that we believed in? Right? Because they both have gone through a lot, even with Picard going through everything that he did with the Romulan relocation and then him, you know, being forced into retirement and all that stuff. They've gone through some stuff, and here he is with the one person that he really does trust. He trusts everything to her. And he's like, we're both now two broken people. Are we willing to really just kill her? Because we're just done? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, okay.
The one time when they don't seem to be able to hit their target.
Well, you know, it's funny because they're showing the phasers hitting, right? Picard's like, you could tell he's 98 years old or whatever it was. He's just all over the place. But she was shooting. She was hitting her mark. But for some reason, this was kind of a plot hole. You have to hit him at a certain angle in order for them to disintegrate versus not. I don't know.
Right. It's like, okay, Jean-Luc, back to the firing range. And really, it's like, okay, how can we hit them?
She was by herself at that point, right? Like, we're just going to point that out because she did kill them in the very first episode, but I guess you have to shoot them at a certain point.
Right. It's like straight down, wasn't Riker saying?
I guess. I don't know. It was kind of interesting. But yeah, I think for those characters to see them be different and I love that. I love seeing these actors come back to these previous roles because not only has their character has changed, but the actor has changed as well. They're more seasoned. They're definitely not the same actor that they were 37 years ago with these characters. And so they can put in more gravitas into these scenes and definitely show that they had gone through a lot. for instance, Jonathan Frakes, wonderful. I was blown away with him as Riker. I think he did fabulous. I just loved everything that he did, right? Even between him getting mad at Picard and all this stuff, and even just the one-on-ones with Beverly. It was really great to see these actors. I mean, LeVar with Geordi. That was not the same Geordi we saw in TNG, right?
Right,
Absolutely.
for sure.
Right. And
Parenthood has definitely changed him.
Exactly. But even Worf, like, he's doing the meditation and he's being all different. And you could just see, though, that these actors really took a step above and beyond with these characters. And that's what made season 3 so special.
And it was nice because it was the return to the, ensemble formula where everyone had a part in the story. Mm-hmm. As opposed to like the movies that had gone to sort of more of the action hero type, setting where it was mostly, Picard and, Data focused. And it really lost something because when you go back and it's like, well, let's see, where is Dr. C in this movie? And there's like this scene and this scene, and
literally
that's it.
Scenes and generations.
But
only
that was
6.
Yeah, and the reason why there's other reasons, of course, but to me, one of the reasons why the movies really didn't do as well as maybe they expected is because it went away from, what really worked well in that, it works well when they're all together, the ensemble. And that's what made TNG special, like, while the series ran. And that's what made season 3 special, for Picard, because everyone had a part in the story and they had their own unique set of skills and perspective that was necessary in order to actually, defeat the Borg ultimately. Like figure out the puzzles that, they had to solve to get there and everything. Like everyone had a little role that they needed to play.
Yeah, I mean, technically, Deanna saved the day, right? Because if Riker didn't stay down there, she would have her Imzadi connection in order to save Picard and Jack. Right. So yeah, they all had their roles, but they also bounced off of each other really well. Like even just the scene of Picard and Beverly reuniting, and here's Riker bringing her in, and he's watching this exchange. And he even made the joke to Jack, he's all like, I was watching you cook before you were even born. Right. So they all worked so well together. And that's why the observation lounge, when they were all together around the table, and the poker scene.
Yes.
Seeing them together, and also knowing that poker scene was so improv, it was just friends. Like you could see it. And it's not even just the characters, but the actors.
Right.
Like they're just a big family. And so it was so great to see. But of course, we did have a couple of not so great moments. And so that was like the one thing you didn't like. And I cheated, and I did too. I did Vadic's death and Jack leaving. There was something really wrong with how this ended. Vadic, I love Vadic. She was delicious. She was that villain that you're like almost rooting for because she was so cool. And the way she died was so anticlimactic.
Totally agree. Absolutely agree with that.
I was like, what? She just gets blown out in space and just turns into multiple pieces. Which,
even though it was, she was frozen and shattered on the
Shrike.
The Shrike. It just reminded me of like a bug splattering on someone's windshield. I mean, it was
never going to see that scene the same again.
But it was
That's
just
true.
so
true.
Like this is a very formidable and very wily adversary, and cunning, twisted.
Yeah.
And she deserved definitely a better end than what she got. But then there's of course how cruel life can be. Sometimes they do end up but it just seemed so okay. She's not useful anymore.
Poof. And this is where the Jack leaving part also comes in, because I felt him just being like, oh, it's the Borg Queen, well, peace out, I'm gonna go deal with her. I was like, that's very childish and not cool. I didn't like how he was just like, well, I'm gonna handle it, and he leaves, and I was all, dude, like, you know something's wrong with you. Your eyes are turning red. You're taking over people's bodies. Your mother's screaming at you to not leave, and you're just like checking out. But I think this is what I would have wanted to see. The episode was called Surrender, right? It ended up being Data surrendering to Lore, but then tricking him in order for Lore to be destroyed. Cool, great, that's awesome. But I would have really liked for Jack, because he kept trying to go out into the bridge, right? Picard and Crusher kept stopping him, and it was like, no, don't sacrifice yourself. I would have loved if he actually did go out onto the bridge. And there was a moment where he really wanted to know what was wrong because she was giving him hints. And he's like, I will leave with you if you leave them alone. Okay. He's finally going to do what he had been doing these last 8 episodes, trying to turn himself in to save everybody else. He goes with her. She takes him to the Borg. It's the Borg queen that's like, thank you, goodbye, and kills Vadic, because that's just how she is. So that's how Vadic ends. She gets betrayed. And then Jack turns into Vox, and that whole situation happens. I think that would have played in a little bit better than how this ended. Because it was like, easy kill. He just left. That was it.
Yeah, and when he left, it was like, okay, it's just been you and your mother for, your whole life. You're just going to suddenly not listen to a word he says, particularly when you approached her to say, hey, there's something really wrong with me.
Exactly.
Please help me. And now she's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to just completely ignore you and just kind of, do it my way. And see ya.
Yeah, he's like, oh, it's the Borg queen. I could handle her. Hello. Like, no, you can't. It really left a bad taste in my mouth. And like I said, Vadic's death and Jack leaving kind of played hand in hand with each other. I just think if they went that direction that I had mentioned, I think it would have been much of a smoother transition. Everyone was expecting it. Everyone thought he was going to surrender himself at some point. So just do it. I was just like, don't try to make such a huge surprise, but then it was a surprise that wasn't the greatest. But I mean, maybe scenes were cut out, because that does happen. Maybe there was other scenes that might have made it more fulfilling than what we got. I'm not sure. Now, I'm curious though, why did you choose this moment for your, Starfleet is my family?
Well, it was kind of like mostly thinking of Jack and how incredibly devastated he must have been, emotionally, given what happened. Because, there was that big argument when, Picard and Beverly do finally come together, and she's like, hey, I told him, who you were and how to get a hold of you. He chose not to, as far as she knew.
Yeah.
Little did she know that he actually did, decide, well, I will, try and search him out, and then it said it was 5 years previously, which says he's, a teenager, so he's a kid, it was an incredibly brave thing on his part to do, my father's this, legendary Starfleet officer, and,
right.
According to my mom, he must be an okay guy if, she has all these fond memories of him. So yeah, maybe I will, try and find him and talk to him. And, he finds him, and, he musters up the courage to actually speak to him and ask him a question. And then, the response he gets, to say, yeah, Starfleet is the only family I ever need, and then have the adoring, crowd of cadets, applauding him, and then he's like, playing to that crowd, acknowledging, yes, and thank you, and then, of course, poor Jack, you can almost hear his heart break, and then it goes to look back, and he's gone, of course. And
can you imagine how he felt though for his mom in that moment?
Yeah, just like,
like she didn't matter. Like he probably just thought she didn't matter to him. No wonder she left.
Right. No wonder he's, she's been trying to keep me from him. But yeah, I mean, just all the courage and vulnerability, and just to have it just
fall apart.
Right.
Yeah.
Just like,
and I always thought too that, she probably, he probably told her, yeah, I'm going to think about going. And so that makes her excited, because I'm sure she always wanted to see Picard again at some point, right? And she was probably hoping that this would be the reunion that she's waited for, to see Picard and to explain and all that stuff. And then Jack comes back and is just like, I've decided I'm not going to see him. That must have been devastating for her. And I'm sure she didn't push it because she's respecting her son's wishes, but I'm sure that was so hurtful that maybe she thought, I ruined this chance for them to be a relationship of some point, you know. Because Beverly was always one to always put blame on herself, even if it wasn't her fault.
Although when they finally did get together, if she had known that, he had, approached him and was treated that way, I don't think she would be very happy either.
No,
and all that hostility that he had, when, why didn't you tell me and stuff like that, which is like,
right.
Well, he did try and talk to you, but I mean, granted, he did not know who he was, but at the same point in time, it's like, he did try and contact you and he got terribly hurt. And
I think though Beverly would have known why he said it. She knew Picard better than Picard knew himself. And she's like, okay, let me get this straight. There was a bunch of kids asking him these questions. Yeah, I could see why he was an idiot and said that, especially knowing the fact that, hey, Jack, remember, he didn't know who you were. I can kind of see Beverly almost defending him in a sense. But because Jack didn't know him from Timbuktu, he didn't know who he was. So to him, it's like, oh, he's a jerk. Like that was the first instinct. But for Beverly, she would like, no, Picard is just like this. So, I mean, there might have been, that kind of reaction at the end, but it was heartbreaking. It was really sad. It was kind of weird though, where all of a sudden Picard then realized on the bridge after they were leaving the nebula, he was all like, oh, that was you.
Yeah, that part just really hit strangely. It's like, it had to in order to kind of, get that kind of, recognition, but it was still,
it was a little
just a little odd. It was
odd.
Just at this moment when he's thinking of something that reminds him of, because it was the crew just celebrating together that kind of sparked the speech that he was giving to the cadets. And he did come into the bar.
He did come into the bar. That was him.
We have met.
So our third choice here was actually our favorite episode, and I'm going to go ahead and play mine.
When Jack was on his way, I was terrified. All I knew was that if you're the son of Jean-Luc Picard, there's a target on your back. I lost my parents, then a husband, then my son Wesley, all to the same stars that own you. As a mother, your whole being is about protecting your child. I thought I could protect mine. I didn't know if I could protect yours.
That whole sick bay scene. Okay, I gotta just take a moment. I remember when this first came out, I was kind of ranking like the best to the least favorite episodes. Like I love all the episodes, but you have your favorites versus others. At first, I actually ranked The Bounty as my favorite. And that was just because of all the nostalgia to it. We had everybody there. It was showed Professor Moriarty. It showed the scene with the Pop Goes the Weasel, stuff like that.
Right.
The reunion with Geordi and Beverly and Worf and Beverly. All that stuff was happening. But as this last year has come on, I've really, really respected this episode. It's a Jonathan Frakes episode, obviously. This scene between Picard and Beverly in sickbay was something the fans had always wanted to see, them just going at each other. That emotional, that angst, those feels just all laid out. They were just, I think Patrick actually said this in an interview where they were just raw and naked in this moment. And it's true. And I remember, like I had said earlier, these actors are now seasoned actors. And so here comes Gates, and she is going toe to toe with Sir Patrick Stewart. And it was brilliantly done. And this actual episode, well, this scene was picked from, I believe it was TV Line's Performance of the Week, because it was so well done. Okay. And I love watching this episode over and over. We got Beverly in her lab coat. She saved Shaw's life. In the very end, she's saving Jack's life. And there's that moment where Jack almost died and all that. It was just so good. Was there anything in 17 seconds that you were just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that, or oh my gosh, I wish they did that, or something?
Well, no, actually, like all the scenes you're referring to, it's like those were the things that kind of needed to happen. They needed to have it out, and have that just exchange to just it wouldn't necessarily be to clear the air, but just get those pent up emotions that have been there for such a long time and needed to be expressed and have been bottled up so much. Mm-hmm. And with the Jack being in mortal peril, it's like, and this, Jean-Luc, is when you become a father, because you have that moment, right. Yeah, you never wanted a family, but that now this is, that realization, reminiscing back to that scene, talking to Riker and stuff, and it's like, yes, I am, becoming a father. I'm seeing, this human here who, is my son and is really feeling like my son now. And because, I'm seeing him in danger of dying, and, I don't know what to do. And it's
right. As you know, I'm a vidder. I love making my videos, and I did a video of Picard going on the turbo lift, going in, seeing Jack, Beverly saving Jack, but with Riker's words in the background saying like, it took 17 seconds on, the longest 17 seconds of my life, and talking about how his son survived, and, you're just looking at your child and you have to protect him at all costs. And I really wanted to combine those two, because that was what Terry did. He did that on purpose. Or this was Cindy Appel, and I forgot the second writer's name, but they combined those two moments. And of course, all the titles of these episodes represented something. Disengaged, that was Worf to Raffi. Definitely the Next Generation and Last Generation was they're combining the two with the group, and stuff like that. But there was just something about 17 seconds, like you said, is just, they really brought out all of that pent up anger, all of that frustration, all of that hurt. I mean, Beverly felt guilty that she kept Jack away, but she felt she had no choice. I know a lot of people put down Beverly for what she did. And yes, was it wrong of her? Yes, but she kind of did it for the right reasons. It's like, go back and watch Bloodlines. Like right. That, he wanted so much revenge on Picard that he was going to kill an innocent person who had nothing to do with Picard just to seek revenge. So what are they going to do with his actual son? Right. And right. She was naming things, And
then in that scene, the video clip from earlier where she was saying, when it's known that he is the son of Captain Picard, there is a target on his back. It's like, you can't
exactly
the bell, once that information is out there, you can't take it back. And so you have to be very, very careful. You have to really know what all the implications are of having that information be known.
And and there was always something happening. Like every time I try to tell you I was pregnant, you got kidnapped and was held for 9 days. Then there was a disruptor to your head. And then there was like a bomb went off when you tried to do negotiations. Like she's all like, it was always going to be like that. And it was always like that before. And she was like, you were always in my sickbay. I almost lost you. The Borg picked him, for goodness sakes, to be their leader, their voice of some sort, of just, there was something about Picard that was so interesting to enemies that he was always picked. Look what happened in Chain of Command. The Cardassians, took him. There was always something going on. And she was like, I already lost my parents. I lost my husband. I lost my son, Wesley, to the same stars that own you. There was no way. She's like, I already lost you. Like, I was never going to have you completely. So I might as well protect the child, that the part of you that I could never have.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and all of those incidents were further evidence. It's like, much as I would like to, reveal this information to you and, give you a chance to be involved, there's just too much at stake here. I mean, every incident that's happening in this short period of time is saying that, it's just going to be one after another, after another, after another. And how many, of these, incidents can we have where, before they succeed?
Yeah, exactly. Now let's get into your favorite episode.
Beverly, lead me to our son.
I can lead you to the next level, but after that, the interference increases.
And I'm unable to be more specific with Jack's location.
Jean-Luc,
Beverly, you thought of Jack from the beginning, shielding him from danger. You did everything right.
Oh, I love that scene. Okay, talk about The Last Generation.
Yeah, that absolutely needed to happen. That acknowledgement is like, I came at you like, just so angry that, for you to have, kept him from me. And it's like, well, you know what?
You're right.
I
admit it. And that's hard for Picard to do.
Right.
He's not one to admit when he's wrong. But he's like, we're in danger. Our son is captured by the Borg. Like, you did everything right. Like, all he could do was just thank her at this point for protecting her. There was a lot actually in the last couple episodes where he was giving Beverly a lot of high praises, even at the point in Vox when she was like, so this was a dormant part of Jack his entire life. How did I miss this? And he's like, it's a testament to you that he was able to resist for so long. And even Jack had said, I had always heard voices and I thought it was you. Like, she was his constant. Beverly was Jack's touchstone, right? So anytime the Borg Queen tried to communicate with him in some capacity, he was able to resist because of his mother.
Right. They had that strong attachment, and she was his anchor.
Exactly. Yeah. Which, that's why I think him leaving put a sour taste in my mouth, because she's screaming to not leave and he's ignoring her. Right. But I was very glad at the point in The Last Generation when Picard does go in and the Borg Queen was like, what else could I do but give him a mother's love? And he's like, you are not his mother. And he tries to shoot her.
Absolutely not.
That was us, right? You are not his mother. Like,
no.
Don't even. Oh my gosh, I loved it.
And later in the episode, that earlier discussion when she's talking about all the loss that she's suffered, with her parents and, with Wesley and everything. And that moment when she had to make the decision, whether she had to fire that shot to possibly, kill Jack as well. And, there's just all of that, it's like, I don't want to lose him too, but, then, him versus the entire universe, the needs of the many.
The needs of the many. Yeah, exactly.
And, it's a hard decision anyways, but when you have all of that history behind that decision, I mean, what an incredible, person to actually be able to say, yeah, the universe's survival, needs to happen above all my needs of, keeping my son and, the other people I love that are down there in the cube.
There was something that was told to me last year, and what she said was, this was Beverly's arc. Episode 1 was Beverly almost died trying to keep Jack safe. And then episode 10, she makes the hard decision to sacrifice Jack to save the universe. Right? So she was doing anything she could, even almost dying herself to protect Jack. Right. But then she had to make that decision to sacrifice him in order to save everybody. And that is just a testament to Beverly's character. That's why we love her as a character so much. Absolutely. I know you've mentioned in the past, like, she was a surrogate mother to you as a child. Oh, for me, she was a representation of a single mom, which you really didn't see very often. And
those times.
especially not in those times. And so it's one of those things. It's all like, wow, she was just a powerful, and she's gone through hell, and we all have our story, right? We've all gone in hell and back for whatever reason. And it's like that fire and that strength and that compassion and love that Beverly carries is something that we could learn from, you know? And I think too, and I say this now, you know, I have grown a lot as a person, especially these last couple of years. And I it's testament to Gates, because it's not only the character she plays, she's embodying that character. She is putting herself into this character to being 110%. And it was one of those things, but Gates herself is full of that compassion and love and kindness and just, you know, fire in that soul, right? And if I could be half as amazing, and if I could be half as amazing as Gates is, I'm doing pretty damn good. And, you know, she's inspired me to be just a better person just because of who she is. And that's what I learned from the character.
Oh, definitely. Like, just you talk about, you know, change. Like, you know, when I was 11 years old, you know, I was incredibly shy. And like, there was a time during, you know, when TNG was still running that I, you know, was thinking about, oh, maybe I'll write a fan letter and send it in, but I was too scared. And to think, you know, fast forward to now, you know, I have met her in person, you know, how many times and spoken to her, you know, and you know, it's just like, well, you know,
coming full circle.
Exactly. And, you know, it is, you know, inspiration. She can be inspiring in so many ways, you know,
right,
both through her character and through herself.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's just how Gates is, right? You know, I was gifted a cameo last year after my trauma. And one of the things that she had said was, you know, she had seen the loving kindness that I had given out. And I was inspired by that, because I was like, oh, wow, I hope I'm doing pretty good. You know, I hope I'm exuding that, because I learned that from her. Right. I learned that loving kindness from her. And so she was seeing that. I was like, okay, perfect. We're doing exactly, you know, and I could say the same about you. You know, you have that loving kindness towards others, and you're just a very, you know, gracious and extremely nice person. And we're learning this from a character that's on TV, but it's because of how Gates portrayed her.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like, and you could see moments where a lot of her came through the character.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Was there anything else, though, that was extra special to you in The Last Generation, and why you picked it as your favorite episode?
Mostly it was just like the culmination of everything. You know, you see that, you know, Picard recognizes, okay, you know, I admit, you know, that you did the right thing in trying to you know, have protecting Jack as the top priority rather than,
right,
you know, trying to include me, you know, as a father, and then having the entire crew come back together that last time on the D.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
And, you know, everyone
having the D back was great. I know people are like, oh, too much nostalgia. It was needed. It was part of the story. And I know how much people hated that the Borg came back. But honestly, season 2, that Borg story made no sense. But this did. Like I had said, he was the son of Jean-Luc Picard, but he was also the son of Locutus. And here it was, right?
And also the, you know, kind of standing conventions on their head, in the sense that normally when someone's coming to the rescue, it's like a young hero coming to the rescue of the elders, whereas in this case, you know, it's the seasoned veterans saying, okay, kids, we're on the way. And
we're on the way. We got this.
And, you know, in this instance where sometimes it's like the latest technology that, you know, is what, you know, comes in and helps, you know, solve the problem. It's like, and then they, you know, revert back to, you know, sort of an analog. And that's the only way that they can, you know, get past all of the, you know, the networking and connections between the starships. And it's, you know, just flipping that was really a great thing.
It was great. Too. Yeah, that was just perfect writing on Terry's part to think all of that, putting those pieces together and how everything fit. That's what I think made season 3 so special. And of course, I decided to go ahead and ask our audience about what they thought. So here is
my tricord.
the tricorder rating. So, of course, I went and I got about 61 votes total. I had different polls on Threads and Instagram and Twitter and also YouTube. So there's a combination of everything. And this is what they said. So 5% said 1 to 2 Borgs. That's what they thought of season 3. And those were the one. It was like 3 votes. And I think it was because they were the too much nostalgia, too much, member berries. And it's like, but it works with the story. Like you have to revisit the past in order to continue with the future, right? Now, 11% gave it 3 chateaus, so they were in the middle of the road. Chateau Picards, excuse me.
Just a little bit sour, not too much.
Just a little sour. Yeah, a little tart, nothing too bad. 33% gave it 4 Captain Shaws, and I named him Captain Shaws because I am a huge Jaws fan, and I loved that they honored Robert Shaw in this character. And of course, the Wolf 359 story, that speech that he had in No Win Scenario was a chef's kiss. So Todd Stashwick, you are a wonderful, brilliant addition to Star Trek, and we were so happy to have you on here. And it sucks that you died, and I hope they bring you back.
And he's a wonderful person as well.
He is very wonderful. We both have met him in person. He is fantastic. He took a picture with my mini Bev, and he no questions asked. He's like, a little Bev, sure. And so did Terry Metalis. They were totally gracious. But 51%, most votes, gave it 5 mixtapes. They loved it. Now, we ended up actually having the same score, 4.5. That was our score. I mean, as we've just been discussing, it wasn't perfect, but it was close.
Right. I mean, it's never going to be, there's always going to be a little something that, people are like, well, you're never going to please everyone all the time. But he came just about as close as you could possibly get.
Oh, absolutely. And, one thing too, as I've talked about the story, and I'm not a writer, guys, I have my choices. I have I wish they had done it this way, but I'm still going to enjoy the season, right? Even if it's not the exact way I wish they had it. There was one thing that I felt that was a miss, and this is just an added, thing to the story, was I kind of wish they had more of the Beverly and Jack when he became Vox. I think if she had felt his assimilation and felt that he had changed, there was a connection. We've always talked about Beverly being special. We've always talked, the love for your children. Like, I'm a mother. I have a special bond with my child. And I feel like they kind of did it a little bit in The Last Generation, where she was really focusing on her attention to Jack when she was asking Deanna and Picard going down. But I felt that there was more of a miss in the sense that I wish she was kind of more involved than it just being about Picard and Jack at the very end.
Yeah, there was that brief little blip in that, montage that they're showing while they were hugging that had Beverly in it, but it was only a brief blip. And it's like, it was her love that sustained you for the first, couple decades of your life. So, it should be pulling you back.
A little bit more. Just a little bit more.
Just a little bit.
And I get it. The thing that was missing in his life was his father, just like Jack was the missing piece for Picard. I understand where Terry was going with, and I totally agree 100%.
Agreed.
But Beverly was that touchstone. She was that centerpiece for both of their lives. And I just felt that they didn't really grasp that enough.
Right. Yeah, it's like if someone's your anchor for that long, there's got to be, the anchor is kind of got to help pull you back too.
Correct. Yeah. I do want to add real fast. We have not mentioned this, but Captain Seven, gotta love it. I think Seven's story arc is the best story arc in Star Trek history. I'm just going to say it right now. I finally finished Voyager. Yay me. And seeing her becoming that, from that Borg drone to who she is now, she is the captain of the Enterprise. And I was like, you go, girl. You get it.
And I will admit, I really haven't seen a lot of Voyager episodes, but even just I did go back and see the previous seasons of Picard, and even during that short time, you can see a huge development as far as
development.
Isn't her character.
Right. Now, of course, downside was Safi. I feel bad. those poor shippers, like, we thought we were bad with Crusher, but like they didn't get crap. Like, they got these little snippets at the end of season 1 and season 2, and then they're broken up. And I'm just like, come on, guys. Like, if you're gonna tell a love story between these two, just tell it. Put it out there. At least they're now, first officer and captain of the Enterprise, which is great, but this is why we want legacy. We really want to see Seven now be that Janeway character, right? She's the mother character. She's the one that's going to be have Jack under her wing, or even Sydney or anyone on the crew. She's going to have Raffi's help. It would be really, really nice to have legacy. It's probably not going to happen anytime soon, but
we can always dream.
We could always dream. And, Terry even said, he's like, I have ideas. And of course, we get Q back at the very end of it, because now he's on to Jack's journey of humanity. My one thought, though, was when that happened, I was like, oh, Bev's going to be so pissed. She's like, Q? Bring him to me. I'm done.
Away. As long as he doesn't end up being a dog again.
That was also a really good episode. I mean, poor Beverly, like, she gave birth to a traveler. She had an adopted daughter that was a Q, and then she gave birth to a Borg. She can't win. She cannot, for sure. Well, that was our redhead alert. And of course, it is going to be talking about my next episode. So I am going to be sitting down with Tim from FSF Popcast, and I'm going to be talking about Gates and Comets. And I'm telling you, I was so stoked when I saw Gates do the voice of Mother Ascani on X-Men 97. And she, of course, was also Queen Marlena in He-Man. So that was super exciting. We are going to be going live next week at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So please hit me up at my YouTube channel there. But I did want to mention, guys, I actually have a second redhead alert. And it's because it's big news and I'm super excited. I will be interviewing John Billingsley, and I'm calling it A Night with Phlox. What's funny is I haven't seen one episode of Enterprise, but that's okay. I think I have a good idea of who Phlox is. He's a doctor, so this is a perfect show for him to be on. But I got to know John a little bit. He was very gracious, very kind. And he was like, if you bring back your podcast, hit me up. And here we are. So this interview is going to drop, I believe, on July 5th. So I will be talking with him. And definitely I'm going to want to have your penny for your thoughts. Definitely want some questions in there. But yeah, I am super excited for that.
Yeah, congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you. I know I was holding it in this last month, but it's definitely going to be a good one. July marks a 2-year anniversary for Crusher Convo. And like I said, John's been great. We'll talk about his career and his foundations that he near and dear to his heart, which was the Hollywood Food Coalition and PanCan for pancreatic cancer. So yeah, I think it's going to be lots of fun. I'm super excited. So you're the first to know about it, Erin. Congratulations.
I feel very privileged. Thank you.
But yeah, it's definitely going to be a great time. But you could also find me on different platforms here. So I'm on any podcast, Spotify, Apple, Good Pods. You could buy me a coffee by scanning that QR code that's been on the top right corner. Buy some merch of old and new artwork that I have at TeePublic. But of course, all this information is at crusherconvo.com. I have been lots of fun bringing this back. It's been lots of fun coming back in a different way with Crusher Convo on YouTube form. I hope I'm not disappointing anybody with my different topics. But I'm a nerd at heart. I love different nerdy things. And so I thought crossing the streams would be interesting, especially with Beverly Crusher.
Right.
But like I said, you can go ahead and like and subscribe on YouTube. You could hit me up at Crusher Convo on Instagram and Threads. And like I said, you can also hear all my audio on your favorite podcast. Now, Erin, why don't you let people know where they could find you?
Well, currently I haven't really diversified in terms of platforms. Right now, I'm mostly on Twitter at Fierce Core and Fa. So you can please follow me there, and hopefully I will have some new costumes coming up soon.
But Erin, it is such a pleasure to always have you. Thank you so much for being a longtime listener and supporter of Crusher Convo and talking about Beverly Crusher. I appreciate you so much. And of course, guys, live long and prosper. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Crusher out.